that brings us to the last question of this evening, and boy, is it sped by. So, Alpha Temperature asks, who would be the most suitable girlfriend for Abe?
Well, um, this is something where people would ask me at different times, and what's his love interest? Like if it was going to become a movie or something. I was like, what's Frodo's?
Right,
That would be my
yes.
answer. After the Lord of the Rings, that became easy. It was like, well, he doesn't have one. It's like, exactly. He doesn't have time for it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he might be meeting some along the way that he wish he had time for. And so I would say I've written that in various ways, and sometimes in projects that we've made, it wound up on the editing floor. Other times in future stuff we still hope to make is he'll make quite an impression, but he's not going to have the time.
Mm.
He's in Frodo's condition, right? It would be irresponsible to his mission to get sidetracked for his own,
And there's
his own
also
joy.
there's that scene in the Lord of the Rings movie where they've completed the mission and they're back in the Shire and they're sat in the local tavern, and the four hobbits, they're all kind of looking at each other as all the other hobbits are having a great time, and there's that sense amongst them all. Also, harking back to what you were saying about Vietnam vets and stuff, of them just not being part of that world anymore, and
Hmm.
and it was sort of a frivolous question, but I think actually something quite poignant's come out of the answer. It sort of helps to emphasize Abe's journey and how
And
demanding it is.
it's also a bit of Plato's allegory of the cave, which is, those of you who may be familiar with that, is once the person isn't looking at the shadows on the wall and thinking that's what life is, and they realize there's a world outside that's casting those shadows, it's hard for them to ever go back in the cave with the others. Like
Hmm.
once you see the magic trick, it's hard for you to ever enjoy it again. I'm just
Yes,
saying that about like magic. Once you heard the joke, it's hard for you to laugh at it again.
yes.
So that's kind of how I've always thought about it. And so Frodo is the perfect example of that. When did Frodo have time for a relationship? And if he had one, would it have become more of a Disney movie?
Hmm.
You know,
Yes. No, I can see that. Um,
yeah.
thank you,
So
Alpha.
that was the idea. And when they asked by Hollywood at different times, what's the love relationship? I'd be like, yeah, he didn't have time for that. He'll be tempted, but no, it'd be a diversion.
I'm picking up in the chat on Riverside that everyone's very much sort of on your wavelength in that one, and I also think that that's great. I think how were you under a significant were you ever under a significant amount of pressure to inject some kind of romance into it or anything or
No, and that was one of the things we were very lucky, and I attribute a lot of that to Sherry McKenna. I was like, Sherry, I think there's too many people going to be trying to tell us what we need to do, and we need the creative control. And it was an industry with largely like Hollywood. Someone said, for the most part, no one has creative control, and we were able to have creative control. And because the first game was a hit, that helped enable that legacy. And then time and circumstances, publishing partners, collapses, things like that. Even though they weren't always, the hottest hit sellers, they would still, be highly rated. So we were able to keep carrying that torch, which I feel blessed about.
absolutely and
And we'd have a
well.
team internally; we'd be battling it out, But that's because you really want to field all the best ideas, bring minds together. Yeah.
Oh, but praise be! I'm so pleased that was the case, that you were able to have that creative control and that freedom, um, and thank you for the for that answer. Someone in the chat described it as a whiplash of a of a final question. Maybe it was a little bit.
It's okay.